Para terminar, vamos a hablar de sostenibilidad. Antes de la comida, no os perdáis esta ponencia, que es muy interesante, que además nos habla de sostenibilidad no solamente del medio, sino en general, y con una visión internacional. Entonces, ahora mismo, a quien tenemos con nosotros es a Helen Scheller, que nos va a hablar de sostenibilidad en medios. Que queda muy bonito en los, como digo yo, en los informes de responsabilidad social corporativa diciendo que somos sostenibles, pero es que ahora ya no es una cuestión de decirlo, es que hay que probarlo. Entonces es importante que sepamos el frame en el que nos movemos. Stephanie, creo que la están microfonando. Bueno, y mientras que viene Stephanie, recordaros que la comida es en el primer piso, ¿vale? Que terminamos más o menos a las 2 y a las 3:30 estamos aquí con una presentación también de unos colegas nuestros, socios también de la FEDE, que nos van a hablar de cómo traer un retailer y que Exterior ayuda a ese retailer. Y luego ya seguiremos también con sinergias que se generan en Exterior, con OMG y con Analect. Y, por supuesto, la mesa de las agencias de medios, que como la mesa de anunciantes también es clave para nosotros, ¿vale? Y terminaremos el día después. Cuando quieras, Stephanie. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Hola, yo soy Stephanie y a pesar que entiendo mucho en español, es más difícil para encontrar las palabras adecuadas en español sobre sostenibilidad. Y por eso mi presentación está en inglés. Lo siento mucho. But the topic around sustainability is quite complex. It's something we've been talking about for years and years and years, but it's just recently really established within our industry. And why is sustainability so hard to grasp, so hard to touch? Why is it not tangible? Well, if I ask you, how large is 1 ton of carbon? Does anybody know? Does anybody has a feeling of how big, how large is this 1 ton of carbon? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's actually a cube, 8 meters times 8 meters. And a birch tree needs about 80 years to transform that 1 ton of carbon back into oxygen. Within Omnicom, we have clients that produce every year 100,000 tons of carbon just through communication. They're not selling anything. They're not producing anything. They're simply talking about it. Everyone says the aviation industry is the bean-bat player in this field. Yes, it is. But when you compare that to our media industry, it's almost equal in size. When we think about a media company or one single campaign and compare that to the average carbon emission contribution per person, then we see that even this is higher. So when you think about it again, that massive cube, one single digital media campaign in average is 5 times that massive cube, just this one campaign. When we think about the overall carbon emission perception from a company, the media activities contribute about 5 to 40% of the overall carbon footprint of that company. Of course, that is depending on the industry. When you think, for example, about an insurance company, they don't produce anything. They do, however, a lot of media activities. So hence, that can be up to 40% of the overall carbon emissions. And yes, of course, it is depending on the number of campaigns they run and the media mix. So we all hopefully know already by now that out-of-home is actually a very eco-efficient medium because it's a one-to-many medium. But still, of course, it is contributing to carbon emissions. So now the big question is, why should we continue to talk about sustainability in our sector? Well, on the one hand, companies need to take responsibility and also want to take responsibility. On the other side, of course, we have society and consumers that demand to be more environmentally conscious. But on top of that, we also have regulations that in the future will force us to be more aware of our carbon emissions and force us to go into action mode. When we think and look into all around the world, a lot of these regulations are coming out. So it's not just Europe. We have really gazillion coming out more and more and more, and I think that is something that we should welcome as an industry because it finally puts us into action mode. When we think about the European Union, it's really important to continue the conversation around the Corporate Social Reporting Directive, CSRD or Omnibus, and of course the Future Green Claims Directive. So if you have not heard these names before, please write them down and take them with you. It might also depend on your company and yourself to act upon these. The main contributor, the main thing that these directions and regulations are tackling and questioning companies to do is media carbon measurement. So how large is your media carbon footprint? Well, when we think about our industry, we've always been quite creative. Everyone comes up with a new idea and a new solution. So far we have about 30 different approaches to measure a carbon emissions of a media plan. Obviously, that can't be the solution. But good news, we now finally have one framework. It's called the Global Media Sustainability Framework, GMSF. And it was created by at Net Zero with gazillion amazing contributors who've been involved with us. So we started in October 23, and we've put lots and lots and lots and lots of work on it for us to have one methodology to measure carbon emissions. Why is this so important? Well, we looked into the 6 main channels and really discussed on which parts of the carbon emissions need to be contributed to that channel. And to give you an example why this was so hard is when we think about radio, of course about 65% of radios being listened to in a car, but nobody buys a car to listen to the radio. So why should the emissions being emitted by a car contribute to the channel of radio? So these were all the discussions and the points that we needed to come up with to create one single formula. And that takes into consideration the creation part, the distribution part, and of course the distribution part in the end. So within that framework, we now finally have one methodology, A plus B equals C. A is everything that is in the media plan that sits within the agencies. B are environmental statistics and numbers. And C in the end is the carbon emissions, 5 tons per carbon as an example. What is also really valuable in this whole process is what happens if I don't know B? What if I don't know how large my media file is? What if I don't know how large that poster, how big that is, or where it was contributed, or where it was produced, and how much kilometers this one single poster had to travel from A to be in this location? And for that, together we've created data hacks. So if you don't know your data, you can always rely to the data hacks. So in the end, all of us, we will still receive 5 tons of carbon as an industry. So we've aligned on the metrics, we've aligned on the methodology, we've created this data hacks in case you don't know what data you need and have, but we've also aligned on a data request sheet, because I don't know if you've yet received one, but I'm pretty sure you'll be soon receiving them if you haven't done so. It's gazillion questions on data perspectives and on points and something that needs to go into the formula. And if you, unfortunately, don't know your information, you can now finally go to a data hack sheet and use that. Why is this so important? We finally want to be able to compare peers with peers and apples with apples, and not continuously waste time on discussing if it's 5.4 or 5.6 tons, but focus our time actually on the reduction, which is the most important part of this. So where are we now? We've now explored this whole way, and this was brilliant. We've now had the first adaptation, and now we're really in adding these additional channels. So we now, with the GMSF 1.2, we finally have 6 channels available and these data hacks. Of course, this is a framework that is still being developed. It's exciting, actually, to be in an industry that finally has aligned on one methodology. But that can't be enough. When you think about attention, for example, everybody has this brilliant perception of the value of attention. Everybody is striving attention. But there isn't one common methodology to measure attention. Every agency has a different concept, every partner has a different solution in space. We now, with the GMSF, have one methodology to measure carbon emission. We've managed to establish that in 1.5 years only, which sounds insane in itself. But we don't have a value yet. Nobody understands, what are these 5 tons of carbon that I've saved? What is the value of it? So this is something that currently is also in discussions, and we want to continue to work on that, to create that value, to finally give these 5 tons of carbon an idea and perception, that big cube, what does it mean? What is the value? So this is something that will be adapted in the future on. But for you, it should be really important to stay tuned for the Cannes Festival, which is in June, where the full framework will be finally released, and all of you will be able to have access to the 1 plus A plus B equals C. You can integrate that into your systems, you can integrate that into your portfolio, into your offering. This is something that is available for everybody. So please, please stay away and look at the update, because it's free, it's available, and it'll be launched at Cannes. Well, another big question is, well, what is that? What does it mean? What can I do with it? So let's really take a look now how this looks in practice, and what does it mean to integrate that into my campaign, into my product, into my solution. Sustainability is not just a trend, it's a movement, and we invite every one of you to be part of this. But of course you want to know, well, what can I do? I now have a formula to measure carbon emissions, but how can I actually let others know that I'm participating in sustainability? What solutions are out there? Well, I brought you 3, I think, really incredible examples that show that it's actually quite easy to integrate sustainability. We here see a banner, which is used by Blow Up Media in Germany, for example, and what they used is PVC-free posters. Simple. For an agency and also for a client, it's the same location, it's the same visual. I don't have to adapt anything from a media vendor perspective, but I have a more sustainable format. This can save up to 13% of carbon, because there again is no plastic being used in the whole process, in the production. The carbon reduction was being considered. Great example where I'm like, oh, this isn't even that hard. I just have to change the material itself. And I have a complete new sustainable product. A second one that I wanted to show you is actually from Brazil, and they use solar energy to lighten up the billboard. Again, nothing that is super crazy, nothing that was like people spent 4 years in a basement to come up with a crazy solution. But it's brilliant in itself, and it makes clients and agencies excited to book a more sustainable format. Because through the use of green electricity, you can save up to 11% of carbon. So if I have a client and I'm recommending them a media mix, and I say, well, you have 2 target audiences, or 2 media vendors that target the same audience, but one is using green electricity, which reduces your carbon footprint of your media plan by 11%, my recommendation is to go with the one who uses green electricity, obviously. So again, this can be your competitive advantage. It can be something that makes you outstanding in the market without really coming up with something crazy. I do have a really exciting example, though, that is crazy, and I wanted to show you today. It's from Peru, and it's actually a billboard that creates water. So they have realized that the water shortage is an important topic that's happening. So what they've created together with the university is a billboard that actually filters the air to catch water to make it available for the public. So again, your billboard itself can not only be a message for a brand, but can also have a social and environmental impact that makes this a really exciting product to book. Great, so now we found out today that I can measure my carbon footprint, I can create the cool materials and stuff I can use for my billboard to more sustainable, but how does that look like if a brand is really interested in that? How can I make this in a full campaign and a full idea? And that's why I would like to show you an example we've done with McDonald's.
32% of plastic packaging ends up in our environment, and it takes hundreds of years for it to be degraded. Switching to sustainable packaging alternatives, McDonald's already avoided over 2,000 tons of plastic in Germany since 2019, an important step towards a plastic-free future. Yet only 1 in 7 perceive McDonald's as an environmentally conscious brand. And with distrust in fast food brand sustainability communications, just talking about it isn't enough. If we want people to think differently, we need to communicate differently and prove that at McDonald's, plastic kicks the bucket. With a campaign just as plastic-free as the packaging itself, even if it means that we sometimes violated the laws of media effectiveness. Print ads? Only in certified advertising media and on recycled and certified paper. Shorter online spots cause less emissions, so let's make them shorter. And as plastic-free and media-fast highlights, murals made from ecological wood in 2 of Germany's biggest cities featured an analog and therefore emission-free animation of the campaign motive, even using special photocatalytic paint to purify polluted air. The eco-optimized campaign let people think of McDonald's as a more sustainable brand and significantly improved brand sympathy, trust, and sincerity. But more importantly, we made an impact beyond brand KPIs. The usage of recycled paper reduced emissions by 15%. The wooden murals filtered as much air as 14,000 square meters of forestry per day. And the shorter video ads saved the amount of emissions which would be caused by a round-trip flight from LA to Cannes. And this is just the beginning. Head to betterm.mcdonalds.de to learn more about McDonald's sustainability actions in Germany.
So I think this really shows incredibly how to combine the whole message itself with sustainable formats in a sustainable way to plan media. And as you could probably guess, this campaign won quite a few awards, which makes clients happy, which makes agencies happy, and of course, media vendors. So think about something that is above the line, something interesting, cool, and it will get attention in the market.